The chime of my phone was a sharp, discordant note against the gentle wash of ocean waves outside our Hampton suite. I glanced at the screen, a smile still playing on my lips from arranging the roses Michael had surprised me with. Sterling Family Office. David Chin did a flicker of curiosity. Nothing more. David was the sentinel of my family's quiet fortune, a man of meticulous calm. I took the call. Jennifer. His voice wasn't calm. It was wire-tight. I need immediate verbal verification. A secure matter. My smile faded. David? What's going on? You're on speaker. It's just me. Understood. A pause. The sound of a document being shifted. We've received and are processing a special asset distribution authorization bearing your signature. It requests a wire transfer of $2.85 million from your allocated share of the Sterling Legacy Trust to an escrow account held by Hudson Valley Heritage Properties, LLC. The stated purpose is the acquisition of a residential property in Newburgh. The documentation appeared in order, but protocol requires secondary confirmation before releasing funds of this magnitude. The room, with its tasteful linen and driftwood decor, seemed to tilt. The numbers hung in the air. Cold and alien. 2.85 million. My signature. David. I didn't sign anything. I haven't authorized any distribution. What are you talking about? Silence on the line. Thicker now. The request was submitted electronically late last night. The signature bears a strong resemblance. It passed our initial automated check. Last night? My mind raced, a sickening chill spreading from my core. Last night was our wedding reception. Last night, after the dancing and the toasts, I'd felt safe, loved, rich in every sense. And then, the memory, sharp and clear, sliced through the panic. My father's study, the night before the wedding. The scent of his old leather chair and polished mahogany. Jenny, he'd said, his hand covering mine on the armrest. Your mother, she was always the practical dreamer. The trust was her idea as much as mine. It's not just money. It's your foundation, your wings. He'd pushed a summary document toward me. As of tomorrow, you'll be a full, independent beneficiary. Your share is separate, protected. It's for your life, your future children, true emergencies. David and I are the co-trustees. There are gates for a reason. I'd been overwhelmed, touched to the point of tears. Daddy, this is too much. It's her love for you, he'd said, his voice gruff. And mine. Be smart with it. Don't let anyone convince you to jump those gates for the wrong reasons. I had floated from that room, the weight of the secret a thrilling, precious burden. I only shared it with one person. The only person it felt right to share it with. In the quiet dark of my old bedroom, giddy with pre-wedding euphoria, I'd whispered it to Michael. My parents, they put me in the family trust. As a wedding gift. He'd pulled back to look at me, his eyes shimmering in the moonlight from the window. Jenny, that's incredible. That's not just a gift. That's a legacy. That's our future. He'd held me tighter. What does it mean? How does it work? I burrowed against him, sharing the details like a child sharing candy. It's complicated. There's an annual allowance from the earnings. But for big things, like buying a home. A real home for us that we'd need to submit a formal request. David and my dad have to approve it. It's to protect the capital. So David Chin has veto power over our dream house? He'd asked, his tone light, but his body felt suddenly still against mine. It's not like that. It's protection. For us. And you trust this David completely? Implicitly. He worked with my mom's family. Michael had been quiet for a long moment. Then kissed my forehead. It's amazing. We'll build the most beautiful life with that foundation. I promise. Now, David's voice brought me back to the horrifying present. Jennifer? Are you there? Stop it. I breathed, my knuckles white around the phone. Stop whatever you're doing. Do not send that wire. That is not my signature. I am not buying a property in Newburgh. Acknowledged. His tone shifted, became brisk, procedural. I am freezing the request and flagging it for fraud investigation. I will secure all related documents and send a copy to your secure email for your review. Do not discuss this on an unsecured line. I will call you back from the encrypted landline in 10 minutes. The line went dead. I stood frozen in the center of the suite, the cheerful sun streaming through the windows, feeling like an accusation. From the ensuite bathroom, I could hear the shower running. Michael humming some pop song off-key. The normalcy of it was grotesque. My laptop was on the chic desk. I opened it, my fingers clumsy, and logged into the encrypted email service the family office used. David's email was already there, marked with the highest priority flag. The attached PDF loaded. It looked real. The letterhead was perfect. Sterling Legacy Trust. Administrative office, the language was stiff. Legalistic. There was my name, Jennifer Ann Sterling Carlson, and there, at the bottom, was my signature. Almost .my real signature on my driver's license had a lazy, looping flourish on the final R. This one ended with a sharp, angular jab, as if the forger had gotten tired or nervous. It was a good fake, a damn good one, but it wasn't mine. The property description was for a historic riverfront estate in Newburgh. The purchase price, $2.8 $50.000. The wire instructions were detailed, and then I saw it at the bottom of the form. In the section for secondary contact/relationship to beneficiary. Michael Carlson, husband. Michael's cell number. Elena Carlson's sister. A718 area code number I didn't recognize. Sister, Elena. Michael had mentioned his sister Elena, a struggling, single mom in Queens. He'd said they weren't close. He'd never given me her number. Why was she the secondary contact on a multi-million-dollar wire transfer from my trust? The shower stopped. The bathroom door opened. Steam billowing out. Michael emerged, a white towel slung low around his hips, his hair damp and tousled. He grinned, that easy, heart-stopping grin that had made me fall for him. Hey, beautiful. Who is on the phone? Planning our next adventure already? He walked toward me, reaching out. I took a step back, lifting the laptop screen. What is this? Michael? He leaned in, squinting at the screen. His smile didn't vanish, but it stiffened, fixed in place. What's what? Babe? Some legal stuff? You know I'm useless before coffee. Don't, I said, my voice low and steady, a tone I didn't recognize as my own. David Chin just called. He was about to wire $2.85 million of my money to buy a house in Newburgh, with my signature on the request. Michael's eyes scanned the document. I saw the exact moment understanding dawned, the slight widening, the rapid flicker as he read the details, the almost imperceptible drain of color beneath his tan. He straightened up, running a hand through his hair. Oh, that, he said, forcing a laugh. It sounded brittle. That's the surprise. I was going to tell you after breakfast. It's an investment property. Jen, a steal. The upside is insane. I found it, and I thought, with the trust, we could jump on it. It's for us. You thought you'd use my trust, forge my signature, and buy it as a surprise? The absurdity was acid in my throat. With your sister listed as the contact? Elena, she knows the area. She was going to help manage it, and I didn't forge anything. He said, his voice taking on a wounded edge. I signed for you, as your husband. We're a team now. What's yours is, it's for our family. I was going to tell you today. I swear. I just wanted to secure it before someone else did. You signed my name. That's forgery. That's fraud. Michael. I pointed at the screen. Look at it. That's not even a good copy. Since when do you sign my name with a stabbing motion? His facade began to crack. The charming bewilderment morphed into frustration. Okay, fine. Maybe I overstepped. But can you blame me? You dropped this huge trust in my lap. Talk about gates and protections and daddy's approval, like I'm some gold digger who can't be trusted to help build our future. I saw an opportunity to build that future for us, and I took it. For us. For us? I snapped, the icy control breaking. Then why is the title going to Hudson Valley Heritage Properties LLC? An LLC I've never heard of? Why is your sister's phone number on my financial document? This doesn't smell like for us. Michael, it smells like you funneling my inheritance to your family behind my back. He flinched as if struck. How can you say that? After everything. I married you. I love you. This is just how things are done in my family. We help each other. Elena and my mom. They're in a bad place. This investment could have set them up. 2. It's all connected. I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd be happy to help. The justification, the sheer gall of it, left me breathless. He was twisting it, making meth selfish one. The one who didn't understand family loyalty. The trust my mother had left me as an act of love was being recast as a tool for his family's ascent. You've thought I'd be happy you committed felony fraud on our wedding night? My laugh was a short, harsh sound. You thought I'd be thrilled you lied to me, forged my name, and tried to steal from me? Steal? Steal? He raised his voice, the towel slipping as he gestured, wildly. I'm your husband. It's not stealing. It's planning. God, Jennifer, you've been so sheltered in your little Fifth Avenue bubble that you don't know how the real world works. People take chances. They help their families. They don't run to their daddy's lawyer at the first sign of initiative. The phone on the desk rang. The landline. David. On the secure line. I stared at Michael. The man who'd sworn to cherish me, whose wedding band was still bright and new on his finger. I saw a stranger, a desperate, calculating stranger, who looked at me and saw a trust fund with a heartbeat. I picked up the receiver. David. Jennifer. I have your father on conference. Jenny? My father's voice, like granite, came on the line. What the hell is happening? I kept my eyes locked on Michael. Exactly what David told you. Someone submitted a fraudulent distribution request with a forged signature for $2.85 million to buy a house in Newburgh tied to Michael's family. A string of low, vehement curses from my father. Is he there with you? Yes. Put me on speaker. I pressed the button. You're on speaker. Dad. Michael. My father's voice boomed through the room, devoid of any warmth I'd ever heard him use. You have exactly one chance to explain yourself to me before I call the Suffolk County DA and the FBI, and I suggest you tell the truth. Michael's bravado crumpled under the direct assault. He looked from me to the phone, his face pale. Robert, sir, it's a misunderstanding. A massive misunderstanding. I was trying to do a good thing for Jennifer and our future. I handled it wrong. I admit that, but the intent was pure. The intent was to fraudulently obtain funds from a trust you have zero legal authority over. David Chen's calm, precise voice cut in. The document is a forgery. The notary stamp is fraudulent. The LLC in question was formed 6 weeks ago. This is not a mishandling. This is premeditated fraud. I didn't know. Michael cried, his hands up. A guy at business contact set up the LLC. He said it was for tax purposes. He handled the paperwork. I just signed where he told me to sign. You signed Jennifer's name. My father said, deadly quiet. Where did you get a copy of her signature to practice? Michael opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The lie had hit a wall. He'd practiced. Of course he had. On our joint lease application? On a check he'd seen me sign? Jennifer, my father said, get your things. There's a car waiting downstairs. It will take you to the city. Andrew and David will meet you at the office. Do not engage with him further. Michael's eyes widened in panic. No, Jenny, please, don't do this. We can fix this. It's our honeymoon. That word. In this context, was the final twist of the knife. I felt nothing. No love. No hate. Just a vast, hollow cold. I hung up the phone. I walked to the closet, pulled out my weekend bag, and began mechanically throwing in my clothes. My toiletries from the marble bathroom. You're leaving? He whispered, incredulous. You're just going to walk out? After everything? Because of a paperwork error? I zipped the bag shut and turned to him. It's not an error. Michael, it's a crime. And you're not the man I married. I'm not sure I ever knew who that was. I picked up my purse, slid the laptop inside. The wedding is over. Consider this the annulment. I walked to the suite door. He didn't move, standing like a statue in his towel amidst the ruins of the romantic setup. Jenny, his voice, was a broken thing now. I love you. I didn't look back. No, I said, opening the door. You loved the trust. The hallway was silent, plush carpet muffling my steps. The elevator ride down was a blur. The bright, breezy lobby felt like another planet. A black town car was idling at the curb, a driver standing beside it. He nodded as I approached. Ms. Sterling? Your father sent me. I slid into the cool, leather interior as the car pulled away from the picturesque inn toward the highway back to New York. I finally let the tremor take over. I wrapped my arms around myself, watching the sunny, perfect Hamptons scenery fly past, feeling like I was escaping a crime scene. Because I was. The crime had been committed against my future, my trust, and my mother's legacy. And the perpetrator was the man whose name I now legally shared. The fight, I knew, was only beginning, but the first battle, the battle for my own belief, that was over. I believed the evidence. I believed David. I believed my father. I no longer believed in Michael. The 60-mile drive from the Hamptons to Manhattan was a silent, rolling decompression chamber. My father's driver, Leo, a man of few words and granite discretion, didn't ask questions. The only sound was the soft hum of the tires and the staticky murmur of a financial news station he kept low. I stared out the window, the picturesque villages and sprawling estates blurring into a meaningless watercolor. My mind replayed the last hour on a nauseating loop. David's clinical tone, the pixel-perfect forgery on my screen, Michael's face cycling from charm to panic to accusation. My phone buzzed in my clutch. Not Michael. A text from my father, direct and characteristically succinct. Andrew's office, 60th floor. Now, David and Claude are here. Claude, my mother's sister. Claudia, my godmother. My surrogate mother after mine passed. And the human equivalent of a finely tuned radar system. She'd never liked Michael. The memory of her voice, sharp with warning, echoed in the silent car. He's too polished. Jenny, like a salesman who knows the product is defective, I dismissed it as her overprotectiveness, her general wariness of men who weren't my late father's carbon copy. Now, her words felt like prophecy carved in ice. The car slid into the underground garage of a sleek midtown tower, a fortress of steel and money. Andrew Pierce's law firm occupied the top 3 floors. The elevator ride was a swift, soundless ascent when the doors opened directly into the firm's serene, hushed reception. Andrew's executive assistant, a woman named Greta who had always reminded me of a polite but immovable force of nature, was waiting. Jennifer, she said, her voice softening a fraction. This way. They're in the main conference room. The room was all cool tones and breathtaking views of Central Park. My father, Robert Sterling, stood at the window, his back to the room, a silhouette of contained fury. Claudia sat at the immense glass table, her posture ramrod straight, her hands clasped so tightly the knuckles were white. David Chin was at the head of the table, a slim file folder and a tablet before him. Andrew Pierce, my father's personal attorney for 30 years, a man with the weary eyes of a scholar and the tactical mind of a general, gave me a grim, supportive nod. Jenny, my father said, turning. He didn't move to hug me. His face was ashen, the lines around his mouth etched deep. Tell me everything. From the moment you told him about the trust. So I did. My voice sounded flat, detached, as I recounted the wedding eve conversation in his study. My own giddy indiscretion in sharing the news with Michael. His questions that had seemed like curious planning at the time. David took notes on his tablet. Andrew listened. His eyes closed, fingertips steepled. When I finished, Claudia was the first to speak. The questions. What exactly did he ask about the trust? Try to remember the wording. I squeezed my eyes shut. He asked how much control I had. If I could access it for a house. He asked about David's role. How often distributions were reviewed. He called it our future. The phrase now tasted like ash. Vulnerability assessment. David said quietly, not looking up from his tablet. He was mapping the security protocols, the human element at UDOT and the structural ones, the trustees. And you told him about the gates. My father said, not a question, the need for approval for principal distributions. I thought I was being transparent with my husband. I said, a flare of defensive heat cutting through the numbness. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Transparency is one thing. Jennifer, Andrew said, opening his eyes. His voice was calm, professorial. Providing a blueprint for circumvention is another. The trust was designed to be a bulwark, not a topic for pillow talk. The criticism stung. So this is my fault? No, my father's voice cut like a whip. The fault lies with the con artist you married. But the oversight was collective. We should have been clearer, firmer. He looked at David. The document. David tapped his tablet, and an image was projected onto a screen on the wall. The fraudulent request. High-quality forgery. The signature is a traced composite, likely from your driver's license and the lease agreement you signed for the Upper West Side apartment. The notary stamp is a digital fake. The LLC, Hudson Valley Heritage Properties, was formed 6 weeks ago. The registered agent is a virtual office. The articles of organization list a single member, Elena Rodriguez Carlson. Rodriguez? Claudia snapped. Elena Carlson is Michael's sister. I said, the knot in my stomach tightening. He never mentioned a Rodriguez. Perhaps because Rodriguez is the surname of the man she divorced 2 years ago. David said, or the man she is currently, according to social media, in a relationship with. The name appears to be a holdover, or an alias, so it's a shell. My father said, a very flimsy one, designed for a single transaction, to receive and redirect funds. Andrew confirmed. The property in Newburgh is real, listed for the exact amount. A quiet, overpriced estate that's been on the market for years. A perfect, untraceable sink for the money once it left the protected environment of the trust. How did the request get to you, David? I asked. It was uploaded via a secure portal, using your beneficiary credentials and a one-time passcode sent to your registered email and phone. David explained. The credentials were correct. The OTP was intercepted or obtained. My phone. Michael had access to my phone. Always. He'd call it our phone. Picking it up to check the weather. Order takeout. How many times had I read a verification code aloud to him because my hands were full? The horror deepened, becoming intimate, mundane. We need to call the police. My father stated. Now, fraud, forgery, attempted grand larceny. We will, Robert, Andrew said, holding up a placating hand. But first, we need to understand the full battlefield. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. This was planned. The LLC, the property targeting, the forged documents. This required research, preparation, and likely accomplices. We go to the police with a partial story. It becomes a messy, he said. She said marital dispute. We go to them with a complete timeline, a motive, a paper trail, and evidence of conspiracy. It's a felony they can't ignore. What do you need? I asked. My voice small. Everything. Andrew said. from the moment you met him. But let's start with the most important legal firewall you have, besides the trust itself. The prenuptial agreement. 8 months earlier, the prenuptial dinner. The memory surfaced. Sharp and uncomfortable, we were at Le Bernardin, a celebration for finalizing the wedding venue. The conversation had turned, inevitably, to practicalities. Andrew has drawn up the preliminary paperwork. My father had said, cutting into his halibut with precise, surgical strokes. The prenup. You'll need to review it with your own counsel. Michael. Of course. Michael's smile had remained, but it tightened at the corners. Of course. Standard procedure. I'm sure. He reached for my hand under the table, though it feels a bit unromantic. Doesn't it, Jen? Planning for a divorce before we've even said I do? It's not about planning for divorce. Michael, my father said, his gaze level. It's about defining the rules of the game while everyone is still friends. It protects Jennifer. It also protects you. Protects me from what? Michael chuckled, but it sounded forced. From Jennifer's formidable shopping habits? Claudia, sipping her wine, had set the glass down with a quiet click. It protects you from future misunderstandings about what is marital property and what is not. It's a clarity tool. Jennifer's assets, both current and future, that including any inheritances or trust distributions that remain solely hers. Anything you two build together, you share. It's quite fair. Future trust distributions? Michael had looked at me, his expression one of innocent curiosity. Is that a significant part of the picture? It's irrelevant to the agreement. My father interjected, smoothly, a clear warning in his tone. The point is separation of premarital assets. Your income, Michael, is what? You're in investment management, small-scale funds. Yes, boutique. It's a grind, but the upside is mine to capture, Michael said, deftly turning the focus to his supposed entrepreneurial hustle. He'd painted a picture of a scrappy financier poised for breakout success. Last year was a bit thin, market corrections. But this year's pipeline is strong. Maybe low 7 figures. I'd believed him. I'd admired his ambition. Later, in the taxi home, Michael's affable mask had slipped. Low 7 figures, he'd muttered, staring out the window. He said it like it was pocket change. And that prenup, it's an insult. Jenny, it says he doesn't trust me, that he thinks I'm after your money. It's not about you, I'd pleaded, taking his hand. It's about my family's structure. My mom's family was big on this stuff. It's not personal. It feels personal, he'd said, pulling his hand away. It feels like I'm being vetted for a security clearance, not welcomed into a family. The argument had simmered for days. He'd play the wounded party. You have to choose. Jenny, are you part of this new family we're making? Or are you just an extension of the sterling fortune? In the end, tearful and desperate for harmony, I'd gone to Andrew myself. Can't we make it softer? More of a gesture of good faith? And Drew had looked at me over his glasses, not unkindly. Jennifer, a prenuptial agreement is not a Valentine's card. It is a contract. Its utility lies in its clarity and enforceability. Softer often means legally ambiguous. Your father's version is generous. It guarantees Michael a share of any marital wealth you accumulate together. It protects his future earnings. It simply wallops off what is already yours. If his intentions are as pure as you think, he should be lining up to sign it. In the end, Michael had signed. The day we inked the papers in Andrew's office, he'd been solemn, resigned. He'd taken the heavy pen, scrawled his signature with a flourish, and then pulled me into a dramatic hug. There. Now, can we please just be in love? He'd whispered into my hair. I'd felt a surge of relief and guilt. I'd made him do this. I'd forced this distrust on our love. Now, in the cold light of the conference room, I saw the other side of that memory. His resistance hadn't been about pride. It had been about a business plan hitting a roadblock. The prenup was a wall. He'd signed it because he had to, because walking away then would have blown his cover. He must have thought there were other ways around, over, or through the wall, like the trust. He signed it. I told Andrew and the room, but he hated it. He made me feel like I was the one who didn't trust him. Good. My father grunted. That document just became your first line of defense. It means his claim to any of your premarital assets, including the trust, is less than zero. It means this fraud attempt was his only play. But why? The question burst out of me. If the prenup blocked him, why go through with the wedding? Just for a chance at the trust? The trust wasn't just a chance. Jennifer, David said, adjusting his glasses, based on the questions you recall him asking, and the precision of this forgery, I believe he identified it as a specific, vulnerable point of entry. The prenup made your other assets untouchable, but the trust, it's dynamic. It has regular distributions. It allows for large withdrawals under specific, documentable circumstances. It's a system, and every system, to a certain mindset, is a puzzle to be solved, a gate to be picked. He married me to pick the lock on my mother's trust. I said, the words making it real. It appears so. Andrew nodded. The marriage gave him proximity, intimate knowledge, and a semblance of moral authority. As her husband is a powerful phrase to throw around, even if it holds no legal water with your specific structures. It creates confusion, hesitancy. He was counting on that. So what now? I asked, the numbness receding, replaced by a cold, clarifying anger. Now, Andrew said, leaning forward, we build our case. We will notify the trust's fraud insurers and institute immediate lockdown protocols, new verification methods for you, biometrics, the works. David will conduct a forensic audit of all recent activity. I will engage a private investigation firm, discreet, top-tier, to delve into Michael's life, his finances, his sister Elena, this LLC, everything. We will turn over every rock he's ever hidden under. And the police? My father pressed. Once we have the full picture from the investigators, which should take 72 hours, we go to the district attorney's office, economic crimes unit. We present a package case, conspiracy, fraud, forgery. We make it so clear, so easy to prosecute. They'd be negligent not to take it. Andrew looked at me. This also means, Jennifer, you cannot engage with him. No calls, no texts, no emails. Any communication goes through me. He will try to contact you. He will love bomb. He will rage. He will threaten. He will beg. You must be a black hole. My phone buzzed again on the table. We all looked at it. The screen lit up with a name. Michael Ring. The room was silent. The phone buzzed. A frantic, angry insect against the glass. The first test. Claudia said softly, her eyes on me. I looked at the screen. At the little diamond ring emoji I'd added next to his name a lifetime ago. I felt nothing. No pull. No longing. No residual affection. Just a deep, hollow disgust. I reached out, swiped the call to decline, and then powered the phone off completely. Good, my father said, a hint of grim approval in his voice. What do I do now? I asked, feeling suddenly exhausted. You go home, Claudia said, standing up. Not to that apartment you shared. You're coming to my place. We'll send someone for your things. And you let us do our jobs. Andrew added, we'll be in touch the moment we know more. In the meantime, Jennifer, I need you to think. Try to remember everything. Every question he asked about money, about your family, about the law, every friend of his you met, every business associate, every time he was overly interested in a document you signed. Write it all down. I nodded, standing on legs that felt like water. The fortress of my family, of lawyers and protocols and cold, hard logic, had closed ranks around me. It was what I had sometimes rebelled against, the sterility of it, the lack of poetry. Now, It felt like the only solid ground in a world that had just collapsed into quicksand. As I followed Claudia out, I glanced back at the conference room. My father was back at the window, a silhouette against the sprawling. In different city, David and Andrew had their heads together, speaking in low, urgent tones. The machinery of retribution and protection had been activated. The wedding was over. The war had begun. The silence in Claudia's guest room was absolute. Not the peaceful quiet of my old Upper West Side apartment on a Sunday morning, but a thick, cottony silence that seemed to absorb sound, thought, even time. I sat on the edge of the four-poster bed, my hands limp in my lap, staring at the intricate pattern of the Persian rug, but seeing nothing. The adrenaline that had carried me from the Hamptons to Andrew's office had drained away, leaving a hollow, sick ache. A soft knock on the door. "Jenny, can I come in?" It was Claudia. She didn't wait for an answer, easing the door open with a tray in her hands. The scent of chamomile and honey filled the room. She set the tray on the nightstand and sat beside me, her presence a steady, familiar warmth. "You need to drink this, and maybe eat a cracker." Her voice was gentle, but brooked no argument. She was in her late 50s, with my mother's intelligent eyes and a spine of Sheffield steel. She'd been a corporate litigator before retiring early. She knew fraud, though of a different, boardroom variety. "I can't," I whispered, my throat tight. "You can, and you will." She pushed the cup into my hands. "Nausea is shock. Sugar and warmth are antidotes. Sip." I obeyed. The tea was scalding and sweet. It grounded me. A little. Andrew's investigator called, she said, her tone shifting to business. "A preliminary report. Do you want to hear it now, or do you need a moment?" The hollow feeling was instantly replaced by a cold, sharp dread. "Now, tell me." She took a deep breath. "Michael's employment. Carlson Capital Partners is essentially a shell, a registered address at a virtual office in WeWork, a bare-bones website, no listed clients, no SEC filings of any substance. The business phone number forwards to his cell." I closed my eyes. A shell, the word echoed. Our apartment, our life, a facade built over a void. His MBA, he said, NYU Stern. No record of a Michael Carlson obtaining an MBA from Stern in the time frame he provided. They're checking for alternate names or possible attendance without graduation. But it's not looking good. A lie, a foundational one. The man who'd debated economic policy with my father over scotch, who'd confidently talked markets and leveraged a construct. What else? His mother and sister, Elena. They reside at the address in Queens he gave you. The house is a modest but well-kept two-family owned by the mother. Mortgage is current. No signs of the desperate financial straits he described. Elena works at a nail salon called Polished in Astoria. She drives a 3-year-old Honda Civic. No criminal record. Nothing matched the narrative. The struggling family. The urgent need all fabrications to elicit sympathy, to lay the groundwork for the investment that would help them. "There's one more thing," Claudia said, her voice dropping. The investigator did a cursory social media sweep on Elena's private Instagram. She's not good at her privacy settings. There are pictures from about 5 months ago. A group dinner. Michael is there. And so is a woman. Blonde. Striking. Very done. Not your style at all. In one picture, she has her hand on Michael's arm. The caption, from a friend's comment, says, "Lovebirds, when's the big day for you two?" The air left my lungs. The image from my own wedding flashed. Michael on the terrace, talking intensely with a blonde woman I didn't know. He'd said she was a cousin, asking for money. She was at the wedding. I said, my voice flat. He said she was a cousin, needing a loan. Claudia's jaw tightened. The investigator is trying to ID her. But Jenny, this pattern, the fake business, the fake degree, the fake financial crisis, now a mystery woman. This wasn't a man who got in over his head. This was a campaign. My phone, now powered on, but with all notifications for Michael blocked, buzzed. A text from my best friend, Chloe, heard rumblings from my mom, who heard from Claude. I'm outside. Let me up, or I'm climbing the fire escape. A ghost of a smile touched my lips. Chloe didn't do pity, she did solidarity, usually with a side of profanity. It's Chloe. Good, Claudia said, standing. Let her in. You need a friend who isn't a lawyer or a relative. I'll be downstairs. Andrew and David are coming by in an hour. Chloe swept in, a whirlwind of designer jeans, tousled blonde hair, and fierce energy. She didn't hug me. She gripped my shoulders, her green eyes scanning my face. Okay, breathe. You're in shock. I've brought emergency supplies. She dumped a tote bag on the bed, pulling out a bottle of very expensive bourbon, a bag of gourmet gummy bears, and a sleek, new burner phone. The bourbon is for later. The gummy bears are for now. Sugar. Good. The phone is for stalking that asshole without using your real number. Now, start talking. From the top, as I recounted the last 24 hours, the call, the document, the confrontation, the investigator's findings that Chloe's face cycled through horror, rage, and a grim I told you so satisfaction that only a best friend can deliver without causing offense. The blonde. She hissed when I finished. I knew it. At the reception, I saw you talking to her. She looked like she'd been dipped in shellac. I pointed her out to you. Remember? You were too busy being radiant. I did remember. A flicker of unease I dismissed. You said she looked familiar. She looked like every aspiring real housewife wannabe at a meat-packing district bottle service club. Chloe corrected, but there was something familiar. I'll figure it out. She grabbed the burner phone. What's her Insta handle? Elena's. I told her. Chloe's thumbs flew over the screen, her expression one of intense concentration. Private. But her profile pic is clear, and her followers list isn't locked. She scrolled, muttering, Nail Salon Crew, random guys Bingo, Brittany Shaw _ I see. That's her. The blonde. Follows Elena. Elena follows back. Brittany's profile is public. Oh, hell no. What? Chloe turned the screen to me. It was a glamour shot of the blonde from the wedding. Pouty lips. Flawless makeup. The bio read, Sparkles Luxury Lifestyle Sparkles, Aspiring Influencer, Sparkles Founder. B. Shaw Concierge Sparkles. Scrolling. Chloe's finger moved. Photos of cocktails. Rooftop bars. Tagged designer clothes. Here, 6 months ago. Celebrating my love's big promotion. Hashtag blessed, hashtag Carlson Capital. She zoomed in. The photo showed Brittany, cheek to cheek with a beaming Michael. He was holding a bottle of champagne. The caption underneath, from a commenter, Congrats to you both. Mikey's moving on up. The world narrowed to that pixelated image. His arm around her waist. His smile, the same smile he'd given me when he proposed. The date stamp, 6 months ago. We were already engaged then. We'd just signed the lease on the apartment. He was with her, I said, the words sounding distant. While he was with me, he was public with her. Chloe corrected, her voice dripping with venom. While he was secretly securing his meal ticket with you. This wasn't an affair, Jenny. This was a parallel operation. The doorbell rang downstairs. Andrew and David had arrived. The atmosphere in Claudia's formal living room was that of a war council. Andrew had a thin file. David had his tablet. Chloe had planted herself next to me on the sofa, a silent guardian. We've identified the blonde. Andrew began, without preamble. Brittany Shaw, 28, freelance brand consultant, that which seems to mean she organizes parties and gets free clothes in exchange for social media posts. She has a modest following. More importantly, she has a history with Michael Carlson dating back at least 2 years. According to their social media, cross-posting. 2 years? I interrupted. We've been together for 2 years. Precisely. David said softly. The timelines overlap completely. The investigator found a shared lease agreement from 18 months ago. Andrew continued, for an apartment in Long Island City, in the names of Michael Carlson and Brittany Shaw. It expired 3 months before he moved in with you. The pieces were no longer falling into place. They were assembling themselves into a monstrous, obvious picture. So he was living with her, while he was dating me. It appears he maintained a relationship with her throughout his courtship of you. Andrew confirmed, his tone clinical. The question is, what was her role? A romantic partner he couldn't or wouldn't give up, or something else? The wedding, I said, remembering. She was there. They were arguing. He said she was a cousin asking for money, a convenient cover. David mused. Her presence, if noticed, could be explained away. An argument could be staged to support the needy relative narrative. It also potentially allowed her to observe the event, the security, the guests, to case the joint. Chloe muttered darkly. We're exploring all possibilities. Andrew said, the immediate concern is Elena Carlson, or Rodriguez Carlson. The LLC is in her name. She is the direct beneficiary of the fraud. We need to understand her position. Is she a willing accomplice, a dupe, under Michael's control? We also need to consider the possibility of a wider network. David added, forgery of this quality, setting up the LLC, identifying the property. IT suggests some level of sophistication or assistance. My head was spinning. A network, a conspiracy, words from true crime documentaries, now describing my marriage. What do we do? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. The shock was hardening into something else. A cold, focused anger. We proceed on 2 tracks. Andrew said, Track 1. Continue the deep dive into Michael's life. Finance, associations, past addresses. Track 2. We need to engage him. I thought you said no contact. I said, you will have no contact. I will. Andrew clarified. A legal letter, citing the fraudulent document, demanding a full explanation and the immediate surrender of any and all materials pertaining to the Sterling Legacy Trust or Jennifer Sterling's personal finances. It will be a shot across the bow. His response, or lack thereof, will be telling. And if he tries to contact me, you record everything. You say nothing except, all communication must go through my attorney, Andrew Pierce. Then you hang up. Do not engage. Do not explain. Do not let him manipulate you with apologies or anger. As if on cue, my personal phone, which was on the table, lit up. Not a call, but a cascade of text notifications. We all stared at it. Michael, Jenny, please. Michael, we need to talk. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Michael, it was a mistake. A stupid mistake. I was trying to help my family. Our family now. Michael, don't let your father and those lawyers turn you against me. They never wanted us together. Michael, I love you. Remember our vows? For better or worse. This is the worst. We can get through it. Michael, if you don't answer, I'm coming to find you. We can't end like this. Chloe snatched the phone. The audacity. The sheer, unfiltered gall. Classic manipulator's playbook. Andrew said, unfazed, minimize, blame shift, love bomb, threaten. He's cycling through tactics to see what sticks. What about the last one? Coming to find you? Claudia asked, her voice tight. That's a threat we take seriously. Andrew said, Jennifer, you will not leave this apartment unaccompanied for the time being. We'll have a security detail outside starting tonight. Discreet, but present. The reality of it crashed down. Security details, legal threats. My husband, a man I needed protection from. Send the letter, I said to Andrew. My own voice surprised me. It was clear, cold, and find out who that blonde is to him. Not just what she was, what she is. That night, after Chloe had been persuaded to go home, call me every hour. I'm serious. She'd hissed. and the security detail that a polite, broad-shouldered man named Paul had taken position in a sedan downstairs. I lay in the dark guest room. Sleep was impossible. My mind was a courtroom, replaying the evidence. The wedding. It should have been a sanctuary of memory. Now it felt like a crime scene. Flashback. The wedding ceremony. The string quartet swelled. I stood at the end of the aisle on my father's arm, a vision in silk and lace I couldn't feel. All I saw was Michael, waiting at the altar, tears in his eyes. They felt real. They had felt so real. Who gives this woman to be married to this man? My father's voice, thick with emotion. Her mother and I do. He'd placed my hand in Michael's, given him a look I'd interpreted as stern blessing. Now I wondered if it had been a warning. Michael's vows. He'd written them himself. Jennifer, my love, my surprise. I promise to be your shelter in every storm, to build a life with you that's stronger than any fortune, deeper than any doubt. Doubt. He'd said the word doubt. A tiny flinch. Now a screaming alarm. Flashback. The reception. We were dancing, his hand warm on the small of my back. Happy? He'd murmured into my hair. The happiest. I'd whispered back, believing it. Good. This is just the beginning. Our empire. I'd laughed it off as romantic hyperbole. Our empire. Later, catching the blonde, Brittany on the terrace. Her expression wasn't that of a needy cousin. It was furious, possessive. Michael's body language closed off, tense, trying to steer her away. He'd seen me approaching, his smile instant and blinding. Baby, this is my cousin, Britt. She's having a bit of a crisis, begging for a loan. Not the time or place. Right. Britt? The woman had forced a smile, her eyes raking over me with a look I now recognized as pure, undiluted hatred. Congratulations, she'd said, her voice like splintered glass. You got a good one. Then she'd walked away, her heels clicking sharply on the stone. Sorry about that, Michael had said, pulling me close, his heartbeat steady under my ear. Family, you know, always drama. And I, fool that I was, had kissed his jaw. It's okay. We have our own family now. The memory was a physical pain. I got out of bed, pacing. I opened the burner phone Chloe had left. I found Brittany Shaw's Instagram again. I scrolled back, further, past the glamour shots, past the club photos. A year ago, a picture of a Christmas tree. My love, my home, #cozy. The apartment in the background wasn't the one in Long Island City. It looked older, more. Queens. I zoomed in on a picture on the mantle. It was small, blurry, but it was unmistakable. Michael, Brittany, and an older woman with Michael's smile. His mother. The caption, family is everything. Family. His family. The one he'd told me was struggling, living in a cramped, rundown place. The photo showed a tidy, decorated living room. It showed a family that included Brittany Shaw. A new, even more terrifying thought began to form. What if Brittany wasn't just a girlfriend? What if she was more entrenched? My real phone buzzed again. A single text from an unknown number. Jennifer, it's David. Apologies for the late hour. The investigator found something urgent in a public record search. It's about Elena Rodriguez Carlson. Please call me on the secure line when you are able. Urgent. I looked at the clock. 2:17 a.m. I dialed the number he'd programmed into my phone earlier. He answered on the first ring. Jennifer. What is it? David? A pause. I could hear the hum of his computer. We ran a deeper background on Elena Rodriguez Carlson. Beyond the LLC, we checked marriage records. My heart stopped. She is currently, and legally, married. The marriage license is on file with the city of New York. The spouse's name is listed as Michael Antonio Carlson. The world didn't tilt this time. It shattered. Married. I repeated, the word like a stone in my mouth. The marriage took place 4 years ago. In Queens. There's no record of a divorce, annulment, or legal separation. So when he stood across from me, when he said I do, when he signed the marriage license with me, he was already married. To his sister. It's not just fraud. I whispered into the phone. The full, grotesque truth, finally clear. It's bigamy. It appears so, David said, his voice devoid of any triumph. Only a deep, professional solemnity. This changes the strategic landscape entirely. I've informed Andrew. We will adjust accordingly. Try to get some rest. Jennifer, tomorrow, we begin to dismantle the life he built on lies. The line went dead. I stood in the dark of Claudia's elegant guest room. The phone clutched in my hand. The man I'd married was a criminal, a forger, a bigamist, and the web was deeper, darker, and more humiliating than I could have ever imagined. The vows echoed in the silence. For better or worse, he had given me the worse. And it was all a scripted lie. The trial, I knew, would no longer just be about money. It would be about unraveling a stolen life. And it started now. David's words, delivered in that sterile, midnight phone call, hung in the air of Claudia's guest room long after I'd hung up. Married. For years. To Elena, the facts were simple. Monstrous. They didn't feel real. They felt like a plot twist in a bad Lifetime movie. Too lurid. Too cruel to be my life. I didn't cry. I just sat on the edge of the bed, the ornate pattern of the rug blurring, my mind trying and failing to reconcile the man who'd wept reading his vows with the man who had a wife waiting for him in Queens. The sun rose, casting sharp, accusing light through the windows. Claudia found me there, still dressed in yesterday's clothes, holding the burner phone like a talisman. She took one look at my face and knew the news had gotten worse. Tell me, she said, sitting beside me, her voice a low command. He was already married. I said, the words tasting of ash and iron. To Elena, for years. No divorce. Claudia didn't gasp. She went very still, her lawyer's mind instantly cataloging the implications. Bigamy, she stated, the word final and damning. The marriage to you is voidable. It simplifies the legal disentanglement immensely, but it makes the fraud premeditated to a staggering degree. This wasn't just about money, Jenny. This was identity theft on a human scale. A knock on the doorframe. Andrew and David were back, looking like they hadn't slept. They carried the weary gravity of men who had spent the night excavating a crime scene. You've spoken with David, Andrew said. Not a question. He set his briefcase on a delicate escritoire. The marriage certificate is incontrovertible. We obtained a copy. Michael Antonio Carlson to Elena Maria Rodriguez. For years. 3 months ago. Queens County Clerk's office. So the sister's story. I said, my voice hollow. The struggling single mother in need. It was all a cover. Elena Rodriguez Carlson is indeed a licensed nail technician, David reported, consulting his tablet. She has a steady employment history. No criminal record beyond a few speeding tickets. Her credit is fair. She co-owns the Queen's house with her mother, their mother. I should say, it appears Michael and Elena grew up together. They are, in fact, siblings. The contradiction was dizzying. Siblings but married? It's not uncommon in certain types of fraud, Andrew said grimly, pouring himself a glass of water from the carafe on the tray. A married couple presents a unified front, a shared financial life. Claiming to be siblings allows one half of the couple, typically the more presentable, charming half, to operate in the dating or marriage market unencumbered. The spouse plays a supporting role. The needy relative, the business partner, the alibi. It's a classic grift. The sister or cousin is almost always the wife or girlfriend. The life I thought I had disintegrated, replaced by a cold, architectural blueprint of deceit. Michael and Elena, husband and wife. Grifters. My husband and his wife. The nausea returned. And Brittany Shaw? I asked. The name like a curse. The The picture is still developing. David said, our investigator is working on locating her. Her social media suggests a close, ongoing relationship with Michael. But we've found no legal ties and shared leases currently. No joint accounts. She may be a girlfriend kept in the dark, a knowing accomplice, or something else entirely. We need to understand the hierarchy. Andrew mused, pacing. Is Michael the mastermind, with Elena and potentially Brittany as followers? Or is this a partnership of equals? The answer determines our strategy. What strategy? I asked, the numbness beginning to recede, burned away by a rising, white-hot fury. He committed a crime, several crimes. We give everything to the police and put him in jail. It's not that simple. Jennifer, Andrew said, turning to me, we have evidence of the fraud attempt, the forged document. That's solid. The bigamy is a matter of public record. Also solid. But to prove a pattern, to show this wasn't a one-time, desperate act, but part of a sustained criminal enterprise, we need more. We need to understand their methods, their history. We need to connect Brittany Shaw. We need to see if there are other victims. Other victims? The thought was like a physical blow. It's a distinct possibility. David said gently, this level of planning, the fake business, the forged documents, the bigamous marriage, suggests practice, or ambition beyond a single score. Chloe burst into the room then, bypassing the security detail downstairs with the sheer force of her personality. She took in the scene. Why pallor? The grave faces of the men. What did I miss? She demanded. Paul, downstairs, looks like he's guarding Fort Knox. Did the bastard try to come here? I told her. The color drained from her face, replaced by a furious flush. He married you while he was already married? To his sister wife. What is this? A Gothic novel? I'm going to find him and castrate him with a rusty spoon. Stand in line, Claudia muttered. The investigator, Andrew said, redirecting us. He's made contact with a potential source. The disbarred lawyer, Gerald Moss, the one whose digital signature was clumsily mimicked on the fake notary stamp of your document. He's facing unrelated charges. Tax evasion. He's amenable to conversation in exchange for consideration with the DA. He'll talk? I asked. He'll imply. Andrew corrected. We're meeting him in 2 hours. A neutral location. David and I will go. You. He pointed at me. We'll stay here. Safe. We'll relay everything. The neutral location was a bland, mid-tier hotel conference room near JFK Airport. Gerald Moss was a man in his late 50s, with the rumpled, anxious look of someone who'd once worn good suits but had forgotten how to wear them. He sat across from Andrew and David, a cup of bad coffee trembling slightly in his hand. I'm not admitting to anything, he began, his voice a reedy whisper. I lost my license. I'm not looking for more trouble. We're not here to give you trouble, Mr. Moss, Andrew said, his tone relaxed, almost friendly. We're here about a specific document, a special asset distribution authorization for the Sterling Legacy Trust. The notary seal was, let's say, inspired by your old stamp. Moss paled. I have no knowledge of that. My stamp was stolen years ago. Digital files corrupted. Of course, David said, smoothly, but perhaps you have knowledge of the people who might have an interest in such documents. A man named Michael Carlson, a woman named Elena Rodriguez Carlson, possibly another woman, Brittany Shaw. Moss's eyes darted between them. He took a sip of coffee, his hand shaking. I can't. I don't know those people. That's unfortunate. Andrew sighed, making a show of closing his notebook. Because we were prepared to offer a letter to the district attorney detailing your full cooperation in our separate civil fraud investigation, a letter that might be looked upon favorably when it comes to sentencing on your other matters. But if you don't know them, he started to rise. Wait, Moss put a hand on the table. He looked like a man who'd been cornered by his own bad decisions. I might have been approached for consultation a few months back. By whom? David asked. A woman, called herself Elena, said she and her brother were trying to access a family trust for a property investment. Said the trustee was being difficult. Wanted to know what paperwork would be needed, how to make it look airtight. And you advised her? Andrew pressed. I said in a hypothetical sense that a properly executed request from a beneficiary, with notarized signatures, would be necessary. That's all. General information. And did you provide a template? David's voice was icy. Or perhaps a scan of a notary seal. Hypothetically, Moss looked at his coffee cup. A long silence stretched. There might have been an exchange of emails, discussing hypothetical scenarios. They paid me $5,000 cash for my time. The emails. Andrew said, we'd like them. I don't have them anymore. Everything is somewhere. Mr. Moss. David said, cloud backups, old hard drives. We have subpoena power. It would be easier for everyone if you provided them voluntarily. Today, as a sign of your cooperative spirit, Moss deflated, a balloon losing all its air. I have a laptop. In my car. The emails are there. From a throwaway account. We'll come with you, Andrew said, standing, as they walked to the parking garage. Moss, defeated, kept talking, as if to justify himself. They seemed smart, ambitious. The brother, Michael, he was the talker, charming, said it was a legacy trust, that his new wife was being controlled by her father. He made it sound almost noble, freeing her inheritance from the clutches of a controlling family. David exchanged a glance with Andrew. The narrative Michael had constructed to the oppressed wife. The overbearing father.it was designed to elicit sympathy, even from a crooked lawyer. And the other woman? David asked. Brittany? Moss frowned, unlocking a beat-up sedan. Brittany? Yeah, she was around, at a meeting. Looked bored, like she was just along for the ride. Elena did most of the talking. Michael did the vision thing. Brittany, she was decoration. He handed over a cheap laptop from under the passenger seat. David powered it on, navigated to a web-based email client. The emails were there, detailed, chilling. Elena, writing with a startlingly cold precision, asking about bypassing trustee discretion and creating a paper trail for a real estate acquisition. Michael, chiming in with smooth assurances about the beneficiary's eventual cooperation. And attached, a poorly scanned image of a notary seal belonging to Gerald Moss. Esq. It was a conspiracy, documented in plain text. They asked about other things too. Moss offered, eager to trade all his information now. Not just the trust. They asked about prenuptial agreements, how hard they were to break, what constituted duress in signing. Andrew's jaw tightened. What did you tell them? I told them a prenup like the one you described, ironclad, drafted by a firm like yours that was virtually unbreakable, especially with independent counsel. I told them not to waste their time. So they had known the prenup was a dead end. The trust was their only viable target. This wasn't a crime of passion or desperation. It was a calculated, professional assessment of weaknesses and opportunities. Back at Claudia's, Andrew and David presented their findings. The emails were printed, laid out on the dining table like evidence in a murder trial. So it's the two of them, Michael and Elena, with this Moss character as a resource. Claudia summarized, her finger tracing a line of text about beneficiary coercion models. And Brittany Shaw? I asked, looking at a photo David had printed from her Instagram. She was beautiful in a hard, glossy way. Decoration. Moss said, perhaps. David said, or perhaps she's their marker. Marker? In long cons. Andrew explained, sometimes you plant a person in the life of the mark at the target, someone attractive, who shows interest. It validates the con artist, makes him seem desirable, in demand. It can also be used to create jealousy, to push the mark into making faster commitments. If you don't lock this down, I have other options. The memories assaulted me. The times Brittany had liked Michael's old social media posts from before we met, keeping her presence faintly visible, the way he'd sometimes be vague about his evenings, mentioning networking drinks where I'd picture boring financiers, not a glamorous woman hanging on his arm. Had it all been a play, a stage drama to make me feel lucky, to accelerate the relationship? We need to find her, I said, my voice quiet but firm. We need to know what she knows. The investigator is on it, Andrew assured me. But our immediate priority is locking down your life. We've filed the annulment petition based on bigamy. That's a slam dunk. The fraud case we're building with the DA is strong. But Michael is getting desperate. As if summoned, my phone buzzed. A new email. From an address I didn't recognize. The subject line: "Please, Jenny. One chance." I didn't open it. I handed the phone to Andrew. He read it, his expression grim. Then read it aloud. "Jenny, I know you won't answer my calls. I know they've poisoned you against me. I made a terrible mistake. I was scared. For my family. For us. I thought if I could secure our future, you'd see it was for the best. I never meant to hurt you. What we had was real. It real. The marriage to Elena, it was a mistake from years ago. A green card thing for a friend. We never lived as man and wife. It's meaningless. You are my wife in every way that matters. Please, meet me. One conversation. Let me explain everything. You owe me that much. Don't let your father's money destroy what we have. I'm at our place. I'll wait all night. Michael." The room was silent. The audacity was breathtaking. The rewriting of history, the minimization, the blame shifted onto my family. The grotesque distortion of the green card lie for a marriage of 4 years. And the emotional blackmail. "You owe me that much." "He's at the apartment," I said. "Our place. The place I'd paid for. He has no legal right to be there if you revoke his permission." Andrew said, "Given the circumstances, we can have him removed by police for trespassing, but it might be productive to engage. On our terms." "What do you mean?" "We record the encounter," David said. "You go. With a witness, Chloe or Claudia. You wear a wire. You get him talking. About the trust. About Elena. About the plan. His version. In his own words. Could be invaluable. The idea of seeing him again, of being in that space we'd shared, made my skin crawl, but the idea of him sitting there, in my home, waiting for me, was worse. And the colder, harder part of me, the part that was emerging from the wreckage, wanted to look him in the eye one last time. "I'll do it," I said, "but not there. Somewhere public, somewhere neutral." Andrew nodded. "Good. We'll suggest a place. We'll have security nearby. You say your piece. You get him to incriminate himself. You walk away. It's the beginning of the end game. Jennifer, the end game." I looked at the email, at the pathetic, manipulative words. "You are my wife in every way that matters to N.O." I was his mark, his target, and now I was becoming something else. His nemesis. "Set it up," I said. "Let's finish this." The location Andrew chose was a private dining room in a venerable, wood-paneled Midtown steakhouse, a place that reeked of old money discretion and power lunches. It was neutral ground only in the sense that neither Michael nor I had any emotional connection to it. For him, it would signal seriousness, a return to the world of deals and negotiations he'd pretended to inhabit. For me, flanked by Chloe and with a tiny, high-definition recording device sewn into the lapel of my blazer. It was a stage set for an execution. Remember, Andrew had said, his voice crisp in my ear via the nearly invisible comm unit. "You are in control. You are granting him an audience. Your goal is to get him to confirm, in his own words, the key elements, his knowledge of the fraudulent transfer, his relationship with Elena, the existence of a plan. Do not get drawn into emotional arguments. Stick to facts. Ask short, direct questions. David and I are monitoring from the van outside. Paul is at the bar, posing as a patron. You are safe. Safe. I didn't feel safe. I felt like I was walking into a cage with a predator who knew all my weaknesses. Chloe, sitting beside me, squeezed my hand under the table. You look like you're about to rip his throat out with your teeth, she whispered, which is the correct vibe. Channel it. The door to the private room opened, and Michael walked in. He looked terrible, not remorseful terrible, but cornered terrible. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. He wore a rumpled button-down. No jacket. He'd lost the polished sheen, revealing the gritty desperation underneath. His gaze swept the room, taking in Chloe with a flicker of fury before settling on me. Jenny, he breathed, the hurt puppy act already in motion. Thank you for this. I knew you'd listen to reason. He moved to pull out a chair. Sit there, I said, my voice flat, pointing to the chair directly across from me, at a distance. Chloe's presence was a physical barrier he couldn't cross. He hesitated, then complied. Who's she? He asked, jerking his head toward Chloe. My witness, I said, given that you've already committed fraud against me. I'm not taking any chances. He flinched as if struck. That's not fair. That's not what happened. I told you. It was a mistake. A huge, stupid mistake born out of love. For us. He leaned forward, his eyes pleading. I was trying to build a future for us. Jenny, a future away from your father's controlling strings. That trust, it's yours. It should be ours. He uses it to keep you on a leash. Stick to facts. You submitted a document to the Sterling Family Trust with a forged copy of my signature, authorizing a transfer of $2.85 million to an LLC called Hudson Valley Heritage Properties. Did you do that? He opened his mouth, closed it. The script he'd prepared, the love, the future, the controlling father that wasn't fitting my cold, prosecutorial line of questioning. I facilitated it. For us. Facilitated. You forged my name. It was a technicality. He burst out, his voice rising. A stupid formality. I'm your husband, in the eyes of God and the law. What's yours is mine. I was acting in the interest of our marital union. The law sees it differently. I said, my tone icy, especially the law governing irrevocable trusts, and especially when the husband in question is already legally married to someone else. The color drained from his face. It was instantaneous, a sheet of white washing over his features. His mouth worked, but no sound came out for a long moment. The mask of wounded righteousness shattered, replaced by raw, panicked shock. He hadn't expected me to know. Not this soon. What are you talking about? He finally stammered, but the conviction was gone. It was a weak, reflex denial. Elena Maria Rodriguez Carlson. I stated, your wife, married 4 years ago in Queens. No divorce on file. He stared at me, his mind visibly racing, searching for a new lie, a new story, that was a mistake, a green card thing for a friend of hers. It was never real. We never lived together. Not like that. She's my sister. The marriage license doesn't say sister. It says spouse. And the district attorney tends to take official documents quite seriously, as does the IRS and immigration. For that matter, he was sweating now, a fine sheen on his forehead. Who told you that? Your father's detectives? They're lying. They're trying to destroy me, to keep you under their thumb. The public record told me. Michael, it's quite clear. I leaned forward slightly. So, let's review. You are legally married to Elena. You pursued me, proposed to me, and married me in a bigamous ceremony. During our marriage, you conspired with your legal wife to forge my signature and steal from my trust. Is that an accurate summary? No, he shouted, slamming a hand on the table. Chloe jumped, but didn't speak, her eyes like daggers. It wasn't like that. You don't understand. Elena, she's sick. She has problems. I was trying to help her. The money was for her. To get her treatment. To get her out of my life. I married you because I love you. You're the only real thing in this whole mess. The lies were becoming more grotesque, more desperate. He was throwing narratives at the wall, hoping one would stick. The loving husband, the victim of a controlling family, the caring brother forced into a sham marriage. Now the martyr to a sick sister. It was a performance, but the audience had stopped believing. What about Brittany Shaw? I asked, shifting gears abruptly. The question threw him. His eyes widened further. Brittany? What about her? She's nobody. A friend. A friend you lived with in Long Island City while you were dating me? A friend who posts pictures of you two as a couple, calling you my love? Was she part of the plan too? Or was she just another lie? His composure broke completely. You're spying on me? You're investigating my friends? This is insane. You've become paranoid. Jenny, your father has poisoned you. Answer the question. Michael. My voice was steady, a stark contrast to his spiraling panic. Was Brittany part of your scheme to defraud me? Was she the marker to make you seem more desirable? He stood up, his chair scraping loudly on the floor. I don't have to listen to this. I came here to fix things with my wife, not to be interrogated by you and your spy. He glared at Chloe. Sit down. Michael, I said, not raising my voice. You wanted to explain. Explain. Start with why you married me when you were already married to Elena. He remained standing, trembling with a mixture of fear and rage. You think you're so smart, with your trust fund and your lawyers. You have no idea what real life is like, what it takes to get ahead when you start with nothing. So that's it? I asked, a hollow laugh escaping me. This was just you getting ahead. I was a business opportunity. You were a means to an end. He snarled, the last veneer peeling away. A beautiful, naive, incredibly wealthy means to an end. And you know what? It would have worked if you weren't so damned sheltered and suspicious. A normal wife would have been happy her husband was taking initiative to build their wealth. The words hung in the air, ugly and final. There it was, the confirmation, in his own voice, recorded and beaming to Andrew and David in the van outside. A means to an end. I stood up, matching his stance. I felt nothing but a cold, clear certainty. I'm not your wife. Michael, our marriage is a fraud, in every sense of the word. You will be hearing from the district attorney's office, and from my lawyer regarding the annulment and the lawsuit for fraud, emotional distress, and anything else we can think of. Do not contact me again, ever. I turned to leave. Chloe stood, giving Michael a look of pure, undiluted contempt. You'll regret this, he yelled after me, his voice cracking. You'll come crawling back when you realize no one will ever love you for you. They'll all just want your money. I was the best you'll ever get. I didn't look back. Chloe and I walked out of the private room, through the hushed, disapproving main dining area, and into the bright, impersonal light of the Manhattan afternoon. Paul, our security, fell into step behind us. In the car, I slumped against the seat, the adrenaline crash making me tremble. Chloe held my hand tightly. You were a stone-cold queen in there, she said, her own voice shaky with fury. A total badass. My comm unit crackled. Andrew's voice, tense with satisfaction. Jennifer, that was perfect. We got everything we need. His admission regarding the fraud. His de facto admission of bigamy by not denying the facts. His characterization of you as a means to an end. The DA will be delighted. Well done. It's not done yet, I said, my voice surprisingly firm. We still need Brittany Shaw, and we need to understand the full scope. You heard him. It would have worked. This was a plan, a business plan. Agreed. David's voice came through. And based on his panic when you shifted to Brittany, she is a vulnerable point. He's afraid of what she might know or say. We need to find her before he does. Finding Brittany Shaw proved easier than expected. She wasn't in hiding. She was living her aspiring influencer life, posting from a rooftop bar in Soho that very evening. Our investigator, a taciturn man named Vargas, sat in a car outside her modest walk-up in Hell's Kitchen 2 days later. The plan was simple: catch her alone, away from Michael's influence, and present her with a choice. Chloe and I watched from a discreet cafe down the block as Vargas, dressed in a nondescript suit, approached Brittany as she fumbled with her keys. We couldn't hear the conversation, but we saw her body language. First annoyance, then confusion, then dawning alarm. She looked around furtively, hugged her oversized purse to her chest, and after a brief, tense exchange, followed Vargas to his car. 20 minutes later, in a bland conference room at Andrew's firm, we faced her. She was as polished as her photos, but up close, she looked younger, harder. Her eyes darted between Andrew, David, me, and Chloe, settling on me with a mix of fear and defiance. "I don't know what you want," she said, her voice a nasal New York accent she hid in her videos. "I haven't done anything wrong. We're not suggesting you have." "Ms. Shaw," Andrew began, his tone avuncular, "we're trying to understand your relationship with Michael Carlson. He's my boyfriend. It's complicated. Complicated because he married someone else 4 years ago? Or complicated because he married Jennifer here 2 weeks ago?" Chloe snapped. Brittany's eyes widened. "He what?" "He married me," I said, holding up my left hand, the wedding band still there, feeling like a brand, legally, while being legally married to a woman named Elena, and while, according to social media and a shared lease, being in a relationship with you. The defiance crumpled. Her face, carefully filled and contoured, seemed to sag. He said they were separated. He said it was just paperwork, that she was his crazy ex who wouldn't sign the papers. He said he needed the divorce to be final before he could really be with me, before we could use his access to capital to start our business. The last part came out in a shamed whisper. "Access to capital," David repeated, meaning Jennifer's trust fund. She nodded miserably. He said he had an in with a wealthy family, that he was advising them, and there were opportunities. He said once his own divorce was final and he had his big score, we could launch Bishaw Concierge for real. He even had logos mocked up. She dug in her purse, pulled out her phone with trembling hands, and showed us a sleek logo. He said this was our future. It was so pathetic, so transparent. Michael had been running the same playbook, with minor variations, on multiple women. I was the big score. Brittany was the future he dangled after the score. Elena was the partner in crime. "Did you know about the attempt to transfer money from Jennifer's trust?" Andrew asked. Brittany looked genuinely confused. "What? No. He just said things were taking longer than expected, that the family was being difficult." "Did you ever meet a woman named Elena?" I asked. Her face darkened. "Once, at a dinner. She was intense. She kept asking me about my family, my background. She said, Michael talked about me all the time. It felt weird, like a job interview. Michael said she was his business manager, a real ball buster. Elena, vetting the competition, ensuring the marker was playing her part and wasn't a threat to the primary scheme. Andrew slid a non-disclosure agreement and a preliminary immunity offer from the DA's office across the table. "Ms. Shaw, you are not currently a target of our investigation. However, you are a material witness to Michael Carlson's pattern of deception. If you are willing to provide a full statement about your relationship with him, his promises, his discussions about finances and opportunities, the DA will consider this cooperation. It would also likely protect you from any charges of conspiracy, should they arise." She read the document, her hands shaking. "What happens to him?" she asked. not looking up. That depends on the justice system, David said. But with your testimony, and Jennifer's, and the documentary evidence, his chances are very poor. She looked at me then, really looked at me. I saw no sympathy there, only a raw, furious humiliation that mirrored my own. She'd been played, too, just for smaller stakes. He told me you were a spoiled heiress, she said, her voice bitter, that the marriage was a favor to your dad, a business thing, that there was no love there, that you were cold. I didn't respond. Her need to belittle me, even now, was part of the sickness Michael had cultivated. She picked up the pen. Where do I sign? A week later, the trap was set. Andrew, working with the Economic Crimes Unit, had devised a final play, using the information from Gerald Moss and the recorded confrontation. They had enough for an arrest, but they wanted the full picture, a clean, undeniable closure. An email, appearing to come from David Chen's assistant, but actually crafted by the DA's tech experts, was sent to Michael. It stated that due to internal procedural reviews and potential discrepancies raised by Jennifer, the initial fraud claim was being re-examined. It suggested, in carefully vague language, that if the funds were intended for a legitimate joint marital asset, like a primary residence, and if proper, verifiable signatures could be provided, the distribution might still be processed, albeit with stricter oversight. It was a lifeline, deliberately frayed. Michael took the bait, desperate, cornered, and believing his own lies about my pliability. He reached out to the only person he thought could still forge my signature convincingly, Elena. Vargas and his team were watching the Queen's house. They observed a heated argument between Michael and Elena on the front steps, captured through a long lens. Then, 2 days later, they followed Elena to a Kinko's in Astoria. Through the store's window, they filmed her using a computer station, accessing files on a USB drive, and printing documents. She was nervous, looking over her shoulder. She then drove to a Starbucks in Forest Hills. Michael was waiting. Vargas, posing as a guy on a laptop, sat 2 tables away. His directional microphone picked up their conversation. "Did you get it?" Michael asked, his voice strained. "It's not as good as the last one," Elena hissed, sliding an envelope across the table. "The pressure, it's harder to get it right. And this new request has more fields. It's asking for notarized copies of your marriage license to her. For God's sake, it's just verification. They're covering their asses. It's a good sign. It means they're considering it. This is insane. Mikey, she knows. Her lawyers know. That investigator has been sniffing around my salon, which is why we need this to go through now. Once the money hits the LLC account, we're gone. New identities. Costa Rica. Whatever. But we need this last push. Sign the damn papers. We'll get Moss to notarize them. He's desperate. He'll do it. They didn't mention my name. They didn't need to. The context was clear. The envelope contained a new, improved fraudulent request. They were doubling down. It was all the district attorney needed. The following day, arrest warrants were issued for Michael Carlson and Elena Rodriguez Carlson on charges of conspiracy to commit grand larceny, forgery, identity theft, and for Michael, bigamy. The takedown was set for the conference room at Andrew's firm, under the guise of a final settlement meeting proposed by Michael's newly hired, overmatched public defender. Michael arrived first, slightly more composed than at the steakhouse, wearing a cheap suit, his lawyer, a harried-looking woman with a stack of files beside him. He thought he was coming to negotiate a surrender of claims, perhaps a quiet annulment in exchange for me dropping the fraud charges. He believed the second forged document was his bargaining chip. Elena arrived separately, looking pinched and angry. She was nothing like the imagined struggling sister. She was sharp-faced, with calculating eyes that darted around the room. She didn't have a lawyer. Andrew, David, and I were already there. So were 2 detectives from the Economic Crimes Unit. dressed in plain clothes, standing near the door. "Thank you for coming," Andrew began, his voice cool. "We've asked you here today to discuss the resolution of all matters pertaining to the marriage and financial dealings between Jennifer Sterling and Michael Carlson." Michael tried to catch my eye. I stared straight ahead, my face a mask. "My client is willing to agree to an annulment based on irreconcilable differences," his lawyer said, opening a folder. "In return, we ask that Ms. Sterling withdraw her allegations of fraud, which are based on a tragic misunderstanding within a marriage." "A misunderstanding," I said, my voice cutting through the room. I looked at Michael. "Is that what you call forging my signature? What you call being married to another woman?" I turned to Elena. "Or what you call helping him try to steal from me?" Elena's face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about. We have you on video at Kinko's." "Elena," David said calmly, "printing documents related to the Sterling Trust. We have the documents themselves, with your fingerprints and Michael's. We have your conversation at Starbucks about the last push and Costa Rica. We have Gerald Moss ready to testify about your consultations." The public defender's mouth fell open. She looked at Michael, then at the detectives by the door, understanding dawning. "We also," Andrew added, "have the sworn statement of Brittany Shaw regarding her long-term relationship with Michael and his promises of future wealth tied to the Sterling capital." Michael looked like he'd been gut-punched. All the color left his face. He stared at me, not with pleading now, but with a venomous, naked hatred. "You bitch," he whispered. The detectives stepped forward. "Michael Carlson, Elena Rodriguez Carlson, you are under arrest for the charges of conspiracy to commit grand larceny, forgery in the first degree, identity theft, and criminal possession of a forged instrument." The detective continued, looking at Michael. "And for you, sir, the additional charge of bigamy. You have the right to remain silent." As the words washed over him, as the cold steel of the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Michael's eyes never left mine. The charming suitor, the loving husband, the wounded man, that all were gone, stripped away. All that remained was the furious, cornered con artist, finally facing the consequences of his game. Elena started crying, angry, defeated sobs, calling Michael names in Spanish as she was cuffed. They were let out. The room was silent except for the fading echo of Elena's shouts from the hallway. Andrew let out a long breath. "It's over. Jennifer." I looked at the empty doorway where they had been led away. The man who had vowed to love me was gone, replaced by a criminal in handcuffs. The relief was immense, but it was a cold, hollow kind of relief. "No," I said, turning back to the room, to my father who had just entered, to Claudia, to Chloe. "It's not over. It's just the beginning of the mess." But for the first time, I was no longer drowning in it. I was standing on the shore, watching the wreckage being cleared away. I was free. The silence in Andrew's conference room after they took Michael and Elena away was profound. But it wasn't peaceful. It was the ringing quiet after an explosion. The dust was still settling. My father, who had watched the arrest from the doorway, stepped fully into the room. He didn't hug me. He placed a heavy hand on my shoulder, his grip solid and grounding. "It's done," he said, the words not a question, but a statement of fact. "For now," Andrew corrected, gathering his papers. "The criminal case is in the hands of the Manhattan DA. They have the evidence, the witnesses, Moss, Brittany Shaw, our recordings, the forensic trail. It's strong, but the process is a grind. There will be arraignments, plea negotiations, possibly a trial. And our side?" I asked, my voice sounding distant. The adrenaline was leaching away, leaving a deep, cold fatigue. "The annulment petition based on bigamy is straightforward. The court will void the marriage as if it never existed. The civil suit for fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and restitution is already drafted. We'll file it tomorrow. Its purpose is twofold: recover whatever assets he has which appear negligible and establish a judgment that will follow him, ensuring any future earnings are yours. He doesn't have anything. I said flatly. The judgment is the point. Claudia said, coming to stand beside me. It's a line in the sand, a public record of what he did. My phone buzzed in my purse. Then Chloe's. Then my father's. A flurry of notifications. Chloe looked at hers first, her face hardening. Page 6. She spat. Already. Sterling heiress hubby cuffed in prenup fraud fiasco. They have a picture of them being led out in cuffs. The media, of course. The arrest at a prestigious law firm in Midtown wouldn't stay quiet for long. The vultures had descended. We anticipated this. David said, unflappable. I've prepared a holding statement from the Sterling family office. It will be released within the hour. The statement was a masterpiece of minimalism. Ms. Jennifer Sterling is cooperating fully with authorities in an ongoing investigation into matters of financial fraud and personal misconduct. Out of respect for the legal process, she will not be making further comment at this time. We ask that the family's privacy be respected during this difficult period. IT gave nothing away, assigned no blame, but the phrase personal misconduct was a carefully chosen dog whistle. It didn't matter. The tabloids and gossip sites ran with their own narratives. The initial story painted a salacious picture. A gold-digging husband caught trying to raid his rich wife's trust. But by the afternoon, a counter-narrative emerged, sourced from friends close to the accused. My phone lit up with an alert from a different gossip site. The headline was venomous. Heartbroken husband claims set up by controlling Sterling clan. I clicked, a masochistic impulse taking over. The article quoted unnamed sources saying Michael was a loving husband blindsided by a draconian prenuptial agreement and a wife who was emotionally distant and controlled by her billionaire father. It claimed the trust withdrawal was a mutual investment idea that Jennifer had approved but then reneged on after family pressure. It painted him as the victim of a wealthy family's ruthless protectiveness. They're gaslighting the entire city. Chloe fumed, reading over my shoulder. He's feeding them this crap from a holding cell. He's playing the only card he has left. Andrew said, his mouth a thin line. The sympathy card. He's trying to try the case in the court of public opinion, hoping to pressure the DA or influence a potential jury pool. We need to fight back, my father said, his voice tight with anger. Release the facts. The bigamy. The other woman. No, I said. The word surprised everyone, including me. They all looked at me. Not yet. Andrew, you said the DA's case is strong. They have the facts. If we get into a public shouting match, we lower ourselves. We look defensive. We make it a spectacle. I was paraphrasing something my mother had once said about never arguing with someone who buys ink by the barrel. The statement is enough. For now. Andrew nodded slowly, a flicker of respect in his eyes. It's the smarter play. Let the official charges speak. Bigamy is a matter of public record. It will come out. When it does, his loving husband persona collapses under its own weight. The waiting was agony. The story had legs. For a week, it was a fixture in the tabloids. Photographers camped outside Claudia's building. I became a prisoner in her elegant apartment, watching my own life or a grotesque parody of it play out on screens and newsprint. Michael, through his lawyer, gave a tearful interview to a cable news outlet from Rikers Island. He looked haggard, pale, and utterly convincing. I love my wife, he said, his voice breaking. I made mistakes. I was trying to protect my family, to build a future for us. The pressures, the expectations from her world. I got in over my head, but my heart was always with Jenny. It made me physically ill. Chloe had to take the remote and turn it off. Then, a break. An investigative reporter from a reputable financial news outlet, who had been digging into the court filings, published a piece. It was dry, factual, and devastating. It detailed the existence of the 4-year-old marriage license to Elena Rodriguez Carlson. It mentioned the mystery woman, Brittany Shaw, and her cooperation with authorities. It laid out the mechanics of the forged trust document and the Shell LLC. It didn't take sides. It just presented the documents. The public tide turned. The heartbroken husband narrative began to crumble under the weight of cold, hard data. The headlines shifted. Cinderella Man's story unravels. Bigamy allegations surface in Sterling case. The commentary became less about a marital spat and more about a sophisticated fraud. Through it all, I felt detached, floating. I attended meetings with Andrew and the DA, reviewed documents, answered questions. I was a good witness. Calm, clear, factual. But inside, I was numb. The numbness broke one evening. A week after the arrest, I was in Claudia's library, staring at a legal pad where I was supposed to be jotting down emotional damages for the civil suit. The words wouldn't come. All I could see was Michael's face at the altar, the seeming sincerity in his eyes. Claudia found me there, the pen unmoving in my hand. "It's okay to not be okay, Jenny," she said softly, sitting opposite me. "I am okay," I said automatically. "I'm fine. We're winning. You're not fine. You're in shock. You've been betrayed in the most intimate way possible. Your judgment, your trust, your body, your future, all violated for a price tag. It's okay to grieve." "Grieve for what?" I snapped, the numbness cracking. A lie? A performance? Should I grieve for the imaginary husband I thought I had? Yes, she said simply. You should, because you loved him, or you loved the man he pretended to be. That love was real on your end. Its death deserves mourning. Don't let anger and legal strategy be the only things you feel. It will eat you alive. The dam broke then, not with dramatic sobs, but with a silent, shuddering collapse. The horror, the humiliation, the sheer waste-off, it all crashed over me. Claudia didn't try to shush me or offer platitudes. She just sat there, a steady, silent presence, as I cried for the first time since the phone call in the Hamptons. Later, Chloe arrived with takeout and a no-nonsense attitude. "Okay, wallowing period over," she announced, though her eyes were soft. "We're done being victims. Starting now, we're on the offensive, the personal offensive." "What does that mean?" I asked, wiping my face. "It means we're not letting this define you. First, you're seeing a therapist. My friend Liza. She's amazing. She specializes in trauma from exactly this kind of predatory bullshit. You have an appointment tomorrow. Second, you're not hiding. We're going out. Not to a club. For God's sake. To a movie. In the afternoon. With hats and sunglasses if you want. But we're going. You need to remember what normal life feels like." I started to protest, but the fight was gone. She was right. The therapy was brutal and necessary. Liza, a woman with a kind face and sharp eyes, helped me untangle the guilt from the grief. "You're not stupid for trusting," she said in one session. "Trust is a requirement for love." He weaponized that requirement. That's on him, not on you. Your job now is to learn to trust your discomfort. That little voice you ignored when things didn't add up. Going out with Chloe was a different kind of therapy. The first time, I flinched at every camera phone. Sure, I was being photographed, but the world, for the most part, didn't care. We were just two women watching a dumb comedy. The normalcy was a bomb. Then, the letter came. It arrived at Andrew's office, forwarded to Claudia's. Plain white envelope. Rikers Island return address. Michael's handwriting. I almost threw it away unopened, but something morbid curiosity, a need for finality, made me put on gloves and slice it open. "Jenny, I know you probably won't read this, or your lawyers will. I don't care. I need to say this. I'm so sorry, not for what the lawyers say I did, but for hurting you. I never meant to. I got caught in a web. Elena, she's my sister, but she's sick. She has a gambling problem. Debtors, they were threatening her. Us. I saw a way out with you. A fresh start for all of us. I fell in love with you for real. That part wasn't a lie. I thought if I could just fix things for my family, I could be the man you deserved. It all went wrong. I'm not the monster they're painting me as. I'm a man who made terrible choices trying to help people I love. Please, I'm begging you, don't let them destroy me. Talk to the DA. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. We can still fix this. We had something real. I know you felt it too. I love you. I always will. Michael. I read it twice. The manipulation was so transparent now. The blame shifting. Elena's gambling problem. A new detail. The minimization, terrible choices. The romantic love bombing. I fell in love with you for real. The plea for rescue. It was the same script from the steakhouse, just on paper. I didn't feel rage. I felt a profound, weary pity. And then, nothing at all. I took the letter, placed it in a new envelope, and wrote evidence. Do not destroy on it. I gave it to Andrew the next day. No desire to write a rebuttal? He asked dryly. He's not talking to me. I said, he's talking to the character he created in his head. There's no point. The criminal justice machinery ground on. The arraignment was a procedural blur on a video screen. Michael and Elena stood before a judge, listened to the charges. Michael pleaded not guilty to all counts. His voice firm, playing the wronged man. Elena, through her lawyer, entered a plea of not guilty as well. But she looked hollow, a puppet whose strings had been cut. The judge, citing the severity of the charges and the substantial flight risk, given the attempted wire transfer and the Costa Rica conversation, denied bail for Michael. For Elena, given her community ties and lesser role as perceived by the DA, bail was set at a high figure she couldn't meet. They were both remanded. Watching Michael's face as the judge said remanded without bail was the closest I came to feeling vindication. The arrogant mask slipped for a second, revealing pure, unadulterated terror. This wasn't a game anymore. This was steel doors closing. As we left the courthouse, a small crowd of reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. Ms. Sterling, do you have any comment? Jennifer, do you believe justice will be served? Are you relieved he's behind bars? I stopped. Andrew put a protective hand on my arm, ready to steer me away. I looked at the reporters, at their hungry faces. I thought of the lies Michael had fed them, the distorted picture they'd painted. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just met the lens of the closest camera and gave a small, slow nod. Then I turned and walked to the waiting car. My head held high. It wasn't a victory speech. It was a silent statement. I see you. I am here. I am not broken. The battle for the story, like the legal battle, was far from over. But for the first time, I wasn't just reacting. I was moving forward. The machinery of justice was a slow, grinding beast. Months bled into a year. The Sterling Carlson case, as the press dubbed it, transitioned from a tabloid sensation to a procedural drama in the court system. Andrew and the DA built an impregnable case, brick by evidentiary brick. The private investigator, Vargas, had done his job well. One afternoon, Andrew sat with me in Claudia's living room, a new file before him. We found them, he said, his voice carrying a grim satisfaction. 2 others. My stomach tightened. Other victims? Potential ones. A Sarah Mendez in San Jose, a widowed tech manager, and Linda Forsyth in Tampa. Both had relationships with a man matching Michael's description, though he used variations of his name, Mike Carson, Michael Carrington. Both relationships followed a similar pattern. Intense courtship, talk of marriage, then a financial opportunity that required their capital. Did they lose money? I asked, a cold knot forming in my chest. Sarah was savvy. He asked her to invest $200,000 in a sure thing real estate fund. She insisted on meeting his partners, seeing the paperwork. He ghosted her within a week. Andrew slid a photograph across the table. It was a screenshot from a security camera at a California restaurant. The man had his back to the camera, but the posture, the set of the shoulders, was unmistakably Michael. His arm was around a woman who was not Sarah, not Elena, not Brittany, someone new. He was multitasking. I whispered, the scale of his deception dizzying. Linda in Tampa lost $15,000. He claimed it was a deposit on a beachfront condo they would buy together. He vanished the day after the wire cleared. Andrew's expression was stern. We've contacted them. They were shocked, ashamed. Neither had reported it, blaming themselves for being gullible. They're willing to testify, if needed, to establish a pattern. This was no longer just about me. This was about a predator with a template. The humiliation I felt was now layered with a sickening sense of shared victimhood. He was just fishing, and I was the biggest catch. That's exactly right. A new voice said. David entered, holding his tablet. The pattern is textbook romance fraud. The DA is considering adding scheme to defraud charges, which carry heavier sentences. It shows this wasn't an isolated incident with you. It was his business model. The personal shrank against the backdrop of this systemic predation. My heartbreak curdled into something harder, more purposeful. The trial date arrived. The courtroom was a solemn, wood-paneled arena. I sat at the prosecution table, between Andrew and the lead ADA, a formidable woman named Amanda Cruz. Michael sat with his public defender. He wore a cheap suit and had attempted to regain his polished look. But jail had left a gray pallor on him. Elena, a few feet away, looked diminished, a frightened sparrow next to her court-appointed lawyer. The trial was not about whodunit. The evidence was overwhelming. It was about why and how badly. ADA Cruz laid it out with surgical precision. The bigamous marriage certificate, the forensic analysis of the forged signatures, the digital trail from the hotel IP, Gerald Moss's damning testimony about the consultation, the recorded sting conversation at Starbucks about Costa Rica. The defense's strategy was a desperate, flailing thing. They tried to paint Michael as a loving man led astray by a domineering sister with financial problems. They attempted to cast doubt on the sanctity of the prenuptial agreement, implying financial pressure from my family had created a climate of desperation. Then, I took the stand. ADA Cruz guided me gently. Ms. Sterling, when you said I do, did you believe Michael Carlson was free to marry you? I did, I said, my voice clear in the quiet room. Did you believe he loved you? I believed the person he was pretending to be loved me. I looked directly at Michael. He stared at his hands. She walked me through the discovery of the fraud, the confrontation. The defense attorney's cross-examination was aggressive, trying to paint me as cold, spoiled, and easily manipulated by my father. Ms. Sterling, isn't it true your father never approved of your relationship with Mr. Carlson? My father was cautious. Yes, cautious or controlling. Did he not force you to sign a prenuptial agreement that essentially declared your husband a gold digger before you even walked down the aisle? Objection. Argumentative. ADA Cruz said. Sustained. The attorney tried a different tack. You shared the details of a highly complex, multi-million-dollar trust with Mr. Carlson shortly before your wedding. Why would you do that if you didn't trust him implicitly with your financial future? I paused. This was the question I'd asked myself 1,000 times. I shared it. I said slowly, because I believed we were building a life together. I believed transparency was part of that. I was sharing my life, not just my finances. He was asking questions about our future home, our security. I answered them. I now know he was conducting a vulnerability assessment. The phrase, learned from David and my therapist, landed with a thud. It sounded cold, clinical, and utterly true. Sarah Mendez and Linda Forsythe testified via video link. Their stories, though smaller in monetary scale, mirrored mine with chilling accuracy. The charm, the accelerated intimacy, the financial ask. They spoke of their shame, their anger, their testimony transformed Michael from a flawed husband into a serial predator. The closing arguments were a study in contrast. The defense pleaded for mercy, describing a man who lost his way. ADA Cruz held up the marriage license to Elena, then a photo of him with Brittany, then a screenshot with the woman in California. This is not a man who lost his way, she told the jury, her voice ringing. This is a man who built a roadmap to deceive, to steal, and to shatter lives. He didn't want a wife, he wanted a mark. He didn't want a partnership, he wanted a payout. The jury was out for less than a day. The verdict: guilty on all counts for Michael: grand larceny, forgery, identity theft, scheme to defraud, and bigamy. Elena was found guilty on the conspiracy and forgery charges. At sentencing, the judge was scathing. You weaponized intimacy. You treated marriage, a sacred institution to many, as a tool for fraud. You caused profound psychological and financial harm, not to a faceless corporation, but to individual women who trusted you. He sentenced Michael to 12 to 18 years in state prison. Elena received 5 to 8 years. As the bailiffs led him away, Michael finally looked back at me. There was no love, no apology, no performative sorrow. There was only a flat, exhausted hatred. The mask was gone forever, leaving only the empty man underneath. I felt no triumph, only a vast, echoing closure. It was over. Chapter 8. New Wings. The year that followed was one of quiet, deliberate reconstruction. The annulment was finalized, legally erasing the phantom marriage. The civil judgment against Michael was entered, a symbolic financial scar he would carry. The media moved on to fresh scandals. I moved out of Claudia's and bought my own apartment at a sleek, sun-filled loft in Tribeca, chosen for me, by me. I filled it with art I loved, not decor meant to impress. My work with the Laura Sterling Protector Fund became my anchor. We launched with a quiet website and a hotline, offering legal referrals and support groups for victims of financial and romantic fraud. I didn't put my face on the campaign. Instead, we used anonymized stories, including elements of my own. The message was about education and empowerment, not pity. One evening, at a low-key fundraiser for the fund, held at the Metropolitan Club, I was discussing grant applications with our pro bono legal director when a man approached. He was tall, with kind eyes and an easy smile. Ms. Sterling, I'm Alex Carter. I work with the Legal Aid Society's Consumer Fraud Division. I just wanted to say the work you're doing is incredible. We refer clients to your resources constantly. We talked. He was smart, passionate about his work, and asked thoughtful questions about the fund strategy. He didn't ask about my past, my family, or the trial. He talked about policy gaps and predatory loopholes. It was refreshing. Later, Chloe nudged me. Alex Carter. Huh. I checked. Harvard Law. Pure public service track. No skeletons. And he looked at you like you were explaining the theory of relativity, not nonprofit tax codes. Interesting. Don't start, I said, but I smiled. A few weeks later, I agreed to have coffee with Alex. It was awkward. Tentative. I was guarded in a way I'd never been before. He was patient. He talked about a difficult case he'd won. I shared a sanitized challenge of launching the fund. It was a conversation, not a performance. After a few more coffees, I told him, not the sordid details, but the outline. I was married very briefly. It was fraudulent. It ended in a very public trial. He listened, his expression serious, but not shocked. I know, he said quietly. I read the coverage when it happened. I thought it was one of the most brazen, cruel schemes I'd ever seen. What you're building now, it's a hell of a response. He saw the survivor, not just the victim. It made all the difference. My father and I grew closer. He stopped treating me like a fragile heiress and started asking for my input on the Family Foundation's charitable direction. We had dinners where we talked about the world, not my security detail. One afternoon, a letter arrived, forwarded from Andrew's office. The return address was a women's correctional facility. It was from Elena. I almost discarded it, but curiosity and a strange sense of obligation made me open it. Jennifer, I don't expect a reply. I'm writing this because I have to. I'm in a therapy program here. They make you look at things. I loved my brother. That's where it started. He was always the big dreamer. I was the one who made things happen. The first cons were small dot fake checks, credit card scams. It felt like a game against a system that never gave us a break. Then he met you. You were the ultimate score. He planned it for months. I helped. I hated you without knowing you. I thought you were just another rich girl. Oblivious. It made it easier when you confronted him in that steakhouse. On the recording, I heard it later. You were so calm. You weren't the person he described. That's when I started to crack. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just saying, what you're doing with that fund. It's good. It would have been easier for you to hide. You didn't. I think that's why I'm writing. You took the worst thing we did and tried to make something good from it. I can't do that, but I'm glad someone can. Elena, I read it several times. There was no manipulation, no excuse, just a bleak, sad accounting. I didn't write back, but I didn't throw the letter away. I filed it with the others. A piece of the truth. Months later, the Laura Sterling Protector Fund held its first annual gala. I agreed to give a short speech, standing at the podium, looking out at the crowd of supporters, lawyers, survivors, and friends. I felt a nervous flutter, but not fear. I used to think trust was a weakness. I began, my voice steady, something to be armored against. I've learned that trust is a strength. It's the currency of human connection. What happened to me, and to others we help, wasn't a failure of trust. It was a theft of it. I spoke about the importance of listening to instinct, about financial literacy as a form of self-defense, about building a community that wouldn't shame victims, but empower them. I didn't mention Michael's name. He was irrelevant to the point, as my mother, for whom this fund is named, once told me, the goal isn't to build a cage to keep the world out. It's to grow wings strong enough to navigate it. This fund is about helping others mend their wings and learn to fly again, on their own terms. After the speech, as the room buzzed with conversation, I found my father. He had tears in his eyes. Your mother, he said, his voice rough, would be so proud, not of the fund, of you. Chloe swooped in, champagne in hand. You killed it. Now, your public service is done for the evening. Alex is hovering by the auction items looking tragically handsome. Go, be a person, not a symbol. I laughed, a real, free laugh. I looked across the room and caught Alex's eye. He smiled, a warm, genuine thing. I made my way through the crowd, accepting hugs and handshakes. I wasn't Jennifer Sterling, the scandalized heiress. I wasn't Jennifer Sterling Carlson, the bigamist's mark. I was just Jennifer, building a life from the pieces, stronger at the broken places. The past was a closed case. The future was a blank page. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited to write it. The ballroom of the Metropolitan Club was awash in soft light and the low hum of purposeful conversation. It wasn't the largest venue in New York, but it had a weight, a gravity that felt appropriate. The discreet placards on the linen-draped tables read, Laura Sterling Protector Fund, Inaugural Gala, my mother's name, in elegant script, felt both like a shield and a mandate. I stood, slightly apart from the main crowd, near a towering floral arrangement, adjusting the simple sheath dress I'd chosen. No dramatic gowns, just clean lines. Chloe materialized at my elbow, a flute of champagne in each hand. Nervous? She asked, handing me one. You look like you're about to face a firing squad, not accept a bunch of checks from well-meaning rich people. Public speaking, I muttered, taking a sip. I'd rather face the firing squad. You'll be fine. Just read the teleprompter. And for God's sake, smile. This is a victory lap, not a wake. It wasn't a victory lap. It was a foundation laying. The fund was small but focused. Legal aid, financial literacy workshops, and confidential support for victims of intimate partner fraud. We'd hired a seasoned director, partnered with law schools for pro bono work, and built a website that prioritized clarity over pity. My name was on the letterhead, but my face wasn't the logo. The work was 5 minutes. Ms. Sterling, a young event coordinator, whispered, touching my arm briefly before flitting away. I saw my father across the room, deep in conversation with Andrew and David. He caught my eye and gave a small, firm nod. You're ready. Claudia was shepherding a group of her formidable friends toward the auction tables. The room was full of allies, not just spectators. And then I saw Alex. He was near the back, talking with Amanda Cruz, the ADA who had prosecuted Michael. He was in a simple dark suit, no tie, looking more like a thoughtful academic than a lawyer at a gala. He must have felt my gaze because he looked over. He didn't wave or give a thumbs up. He just met my eyes and offered a small, steady smile. It was an anchor. The coordinator gestured. I handed my glass to Chloe. Break a leg, boss, she said. I walked to the podium, the click of my heels too loud in my ears. The lights were bright, blurring the faces in the first few rows. I took a breath, placed my note cards on the lectern, and looked up. Good evening. Thank you all for being here to support the launch of the Laura Sterling Protector Fund. My voice, amplified, sounded calmer than I felt. A year ago, I stood in a very different kind of room, a courtroom. I was there because I had been the target of a deliberate, calculated fraud, one that turned marriage, a promise of love and partnership, into a weapon for theft. A profound silence had fallen. This wasn't the usual gala pleasantry. In the aftermath, people told me I should be more careful, less trusting. They implied my own openness was the flaw he exploited. I paused, letting the old, hurtful words hang there. But I've come to believe they were wrong. Trust isn't the flaw. The flaw is in a system and a culture that often leaves people isolated, ashamed, and financially paralyzed when that trust is violated. The predators rely on that silence. I saw heads nodding in the audience. Not everyone here was a philanthropist. Some were friends. Others were survivors we'd quietly invited. This fund isn't about building higher walls. It's about building stronger foundations. It's about providing the tools, legal, financial, and emotional that if someone tries to knock you down, you have a network to help you back up. It's about turning isolation into community. I glanced at my note card, then set it aside. My mother, Laura, believed that security wasn't about what you kept out, but about the strength you cultivated within. This fund is my attempt to honor that belief, to take a story of violation and help write new stories of resilience. Thank you for helping us write them. The applause was immediate, warm, sustained. It wasn't for a performance, it was for the idea. As I stepped away from the podium, the adrenaline shifted from fear to a bright, clean energy. The rest of the evening was a pleasant blur of handshakes and conversations. A woman in her 60s, impeccably dressed, took my hand. My daughter, she said quietly, her eyes glistening. A similar thing, with a business partner, smaller scale, but it broke her. Thank you for giving us a place to point her. Later, as the auction wrapped up and the band began to play something soft and jazzy, Alex found me by the bar where I was finally getting that glass of water. That was an incredible speech. He said, not a single platitude, just truth. Thanks. I was terrified. Didn't show. He leaned against the bar. Amanda Cruz says the fund is already changing how her office handles victim support. That's real impact. It's a start. I studied him. You didn't have to come. You know, this isn't really your scene. Are you kidding? He smiled. Free champagne. Watching you be impressive. Fighting the good fight? It's the best night I've had all month. Besides, my scene is usually a legal aid office with flickering fluorescents. This is an upgrade. I laughed. It felt easy. Can I ask you something? He said, his tone shifting slightly. And feel free to tell me it's none of my business. Okay, the work you're doing, it's amazing. But is it everything? Do you ever just get to be Jennifer, who likes bad movies and overpriced coffee? Without the weight of all this, the question was so perceptive it stole my breath for a second. It was what my therapist asked, what Chloe implied. I'm working on that balance. I admitted. It's hard. The fund feels like a necessary redemption, but sometimes it also feels like a cage of my own making. He nodded. The first time I won a big case for a client who'd been screwed over by a predatory lender, I felt like a superhero. I thought that's all I wanted to do. Forever. I burned out in 18 months. My mentor told me, you can't pour from an empty cup, Alex. And justice is a marathon, not a sprint. Took me a while to learn he was right. What did you do? I started bird watching. He said it so deadpan I thought he was joking. Seriously, in Central Park, every Sunday morning. It's quiet. It has nothing to do with the law. It forces me to be still and pay attention to something completely different. It refills the cup. The image of this serious, dedicated lawyer standing silently with binoculars was so unexpectedly charming that I smiled. Bird watching. It's less weird than it sounds. You should try it, or find your version of bird watching. Maybe I will, I said, and I meant it. The evening wound down. My father came over, kissed my cheek. Proud of you, Jenny, he said, his voice thick with an emotion he rarely showed. He glanced at Alex, gave a brief, assessing but not disapproving look, and moved on to thank the event planner. Chloe swooped in as Alex was pulled away by Amanda for a final word. Okay, details, she demanded. What did he say? He was looking at you during your speech like you'd just discovered cold fusion. We talked about the fund and bird watching. Bird watching? She blinked. Is it a euphemism? Please tell me it's a euphemism. I laughed again, feeling lighter than I had in years. No, literal birds. It was nice. She shook her head, grinning. You're into the weird, quiet ones. I respect it. Now, go say a proper goodnight. I'll handle the last of the thank yous. I found Alex near the coat check. The ballroom was emptying, the staff beginning the quiet cleanup. Heading out? I asked. Yeah, early meeting tomorrow. Tenant rights case in the Bronx. He shrugged into his coat. Tonight was really something. Jennifer, truly, thank you for being part of it. I hesitated. Would you want to get coffee sometime? Not a fundraising coffee. A bad movie and overpriced coffee? His smile reached his eyes, crinkling the corners. I would like that very much. Next Sunday, after my bird watching, I'll be all filled with zen and sparrow facts. It's a date. The word hung between us, simple and unburdened. He left, and I stood for a moment in the now quiet grand foyer. The event was over. The fund was launched. The past was a closed book, its painful lessons integrated but no longer ruling my every thought. I collected my own coat and stepped out into the crisp New York night. The city glittered, immense and indifferent, but it no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like a place of possibility. I wasn't who I was a year ago to the trusting bride, the shattered victim, the angry survivor. I was something else, still becoming. I pulled out my phone and texted Chloe. Going home. Talk tomorrow. Her reply was instant. Now, go live your non-metaphorical life. I hailed a cab. As it pulled into the stream of traffic, I looked out at the passing lights. My phone buzzed again. Not Chloe. An email notification from the fund's general inbox. Flagged by our director. The subject line. Thank you. From California. I didn't open it. I would tomorrow. Tonight was for the quiet. For the simple fact of a cool leather seat and a city rushing by. For the thought of coffee and sparrowfax. The future wasn't a fortress to be built or a threat to be managed. It was just the next page, and for the first time in a very long time, I was genuinely curious to see what would be written there. I leaned my head back against the seat and smiled into the darkness. The story wasn't over. It was just finally, truly, my own.